It was marketed as a voyage for the boldest among us, a ticket to the bottom of the world, where only a handful of humans had ever dared to go. But what began as a high-tech adventure turned into an unthinkable tragedy, and at the center of it all was one man, Stockton Rush. He called it innovation, critics called it recklessness, and 5 people would pay the ultimate price. In this series, we're diving deep into the story behind the Titan submersible disaster, from the birth of OceanGate and Stockton Rush's obsession with rewriting the rules of deep-sea exploration, to ignored warnings, missing safety certifications, and a catastrophic implosion that sent shockwaves across the globe. Who was Stockton Rush, visionary pioneer or dangerous idealist? What happened in the final hours of the Titan's descent? And how did a vessel built for discovery become a tomb in the dark silence of the Atlantic? This is not just a story about engineering failure. It's a story about ego, ambition, and the fatal cost of a man with a God complex who gambled with human lives in the name of legacy. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Crime Weekly. I'm Stephanie Harlow.
And I'm Derek Levasseur.
So we are, as you heard from the teaser, talking about the Titan submersible disaster. This was huge. This was a huge thing. I remember when the news reports started coming in, and it was all over. It was all anyone was talking about, and they had a countdown for how many hours of oxygen the people in the submersible had left, and it was so stressful for me. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, these 5 people have family members, they have friends, they have loved ones who are out there watching the same news reports that I'm watching, seeing this oxygen timer just tick down.
Yep.
And then, things started coming out about Stockton Rush, about the other passengers, about their part in it, and about OceanGate, Stockton Rush's company. And it really started to unravel, and it showed how easily this whole tragedy could have been avoided. And then I became very interested in it. I did a video on it on YouTube. I think I may have done 1 or 2. And then the documentary came out on Netflix a few weeks ago. And I remember, I think it was June 11th or June 12th that it dropped. And I was on it as soon as it came out, and I watched it, and I was like, whoa, this is so much worse than we thought. This is just mistake and intentional mistake after mistake. And all the people involved who I think were just too afraid to push back against this man, Stockton Rush, because of his leadership style, because of the way he would react, because of the fact that he had a goal, a personal goal of being this titan of industry, like an Elon Musk or a Jeff Bezos, and he wanted to be a trailblazer, and he wanted to be the one who did something that nobody else did, and that became so much more important than the safety of humans. And it wasn't just the 4 other people that he brought down in the Titan, because he brought many people down in the Titan. He brought many people down in his previous submersibles, and there was always issues, and he always shrugged them off. And this could have happened, before it actually did happen. It could have happened multiple times. It's lucky that it didn't, but these 4 people in Stockton Rush on the submersible, they really, it would have been terrifying to be in their situation. It would have been absolutely terrifying. I mean, the ocean is terrifying on its own. And to be down there and know, hey, things are going wrong, it's scary.
Well, I mean, we're going to get into it because there's, from what I'm seeing, a lot of people who believe they didn't even know that something was wrong until it was too late. But we'll talk about that. But I also think the other reason that this story was so captivating was because of what it was surrounding, which was a little-known boat called the Titanic.
Yeah.
And that's that's a story that's fascinated me and millions of other people since the movie came out, and our boy Leo. And
I have so many books about the Titanic. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy story because that's another example of wanting to be first, of wanting to be the best, and not putting the proper safety measures in place to prevent tragedy. Because as we know with the Titanic, there were engineering designs done that were done for certain reasons, maybe aesthetics, I think speed. Yeah. And it came at the cost of the integrity of the boat. So it's the irony of having this situation happen right next to it when they're going down there to look at a boat that sunk because of its problems to do the same thing. It's mind-boggling, but
it kind of brings it full circle.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. And there's more. There's more about the Titanic and its connection to Stockton Rush, which I found out in my research. So
yeah. No, I'm looking forward to covering it. I had said a couple weeks ago, like, oh, it's going to be a little bit more light. No, it's not light. 5 people lost their lives. But considering what we just covered for 7 parts with Darlie and her 2 children, we too, people ask how we do this all the time, every single week. This is how we do it. All these cases are tragic, but this one's a little lighter as far as the specifics of what went down. And sometimes for us, we need that as well. So it's enjoyable to talk about the science and the technology behind it and the backstories. Yeah. We're not making light of the deaths here, including Stockton Rush. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this case. What are you thinking?
I had a good time researching it because I got to learn about, different metals and their properties and how they're used and why they might be used in aerospace, but not great to use for underwater vessels. So I got to learn a lot. And that really does, for me, buffer the sadness of things when I feel like I'm learning and kind of getting a better handle on things and understanding what happened. And were you about to ask me how many parts do I think this is going to be?
Yeah.
How dare you?
I know you hate that. That's why I always do it.
How dare you? 3. I would say
you hate being constrained. You hate being.
I don't like to say something and not be able to keep my word. Is what it is. Boundaries.
No, but I mean, listen. If we went more with Darlie. It's like you do what you have to do to feel like you've covered it all. And so if it's got to be 4, great. If it's only 2, that's fine too. But no, looking forward to it. The only thing I'll say before we start, thank you to everybody who commented CrimeCon on our Apple podcast, and some people were having issues with Spotify. You can just leave a comment on there. I'm looking through them. I'm going to randomly scroll. We're just going to pick someone. We're going to do it till next week. We'll announce the winner. And then I had a lot of people hit me up saying, well, how do we just get tickets in general if we want them? Don't go buy the tickets through the site. Use our code. You go through the site, but make sure you use our code. Because if you use our code CrimeWeekly, you'll get 10% off the ticket. So if you don't win or you don't want to wait, just go to the CrimeCon website. You can buy your tickets.
CrimeCon Denver, yeah.
Yeah, CrimeCon Denver, and use the CrimeWeekly code. You'll save 10% if you don't want to. But I would say wait for this little giveaway to happen, because we're going to do this one.
We'll announce next week.
Yeah, we're going to probably do another one. But if you're impatient and, you just want to buy them, you can go do that.
All right, so let's dive into it. And as always, to understand what happened at the end, we have to go back to the beginning. So Stockton Rush was born on March 31st, 1962 in San Francisco, California, into a world of privilege, pedigree, and power. He wasn't just a child of wealth. He was actually a descendant of American royalty. 2 of his father's ancestors, Dr. Benjamin Rush and Richard Stockton, signed the Declaration of Independence, anchoring the Rush family name deep into the foundation of the United States. Now, on Stockton's mother's side, the legacy continued. Ellen Davies Rush traced her lineage to Ralph and Louise Davies, a family known for their immense wealth and influence in the West Coast shipping and oil industries. Ralph Davies, who was born in 1897, was working for Standard Oil by the time he was 15, and he would eventually become the youngest person in the company's history to earn the rank of director. During World War II, Davies joined the Department of the Interior at the behest of FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he served as petroleum administrator throughout the war. After the war, Davies served as chairman of shipping company American President Lines and lived with his family in Woodside. His wife Louise was a patron of the art scene in San Francisco and would later donate $4 million for the construction of the city's new music hall that would bear her name. Now, in 1957, Ralph and Louise's daughter, Ellen, would meet Richard Stockton Rush Jr., and within a month, they were engaged. Rush, who's Stockton Rush's father, he served as chairman for the Peregrine Oil Company and notably also served as president-elect of the infamous Bohemian Club. Now, if you're into the conspiracy theory realm of things, you know the Bohemian Club. I'm going to give you a quick rundown. The Bohemian Club is one of the most exclusive and secretive private men's clubs in the United States. Founded in 1872 in San Francisco, its membership includes some of the most powerful men in the world, U.S. presidents, Fortune 500 CEOs, titans of tech, oil barons, media moguls, you name it, like I said, tons of presidents, politicians, everything. And every summer, these men gather at the Bohemian Grove, which is a remote and heavily guarded redwood forest in Northern California, and they engage in some weird stuff. They got some off-the-record meetings, lavish ceremonies that include like burning effigies and kind of running around half naked. Just strange theatric rituals, far from the eyes and ears of the public. And who's that guy? I always forget his name. He was like big into conspiracy theories. I think his last name is Jones. He gets all like really hyped up and wild.
Alec Jones or Alex?
Alex Jones.
Alex
there you
Jones.
go.
He was the idiot who said that Sandy Hook wasn't real.
Yeah, well, he's got tons of conspiracy theories.
Yeah, he got sued for like hundreds of millions of dollars.
He actually took like a camera crew and kind of like broke into Bohemian Grove and was able to get the only footage that we know of. And that's when we saw these men like dancing around like this big owl effigy and like burning it and chanting things. And it's just weird. It's weird to see grown men who hold really high positions of power and influence turn into, I guess, some pagan like ancient pagan worshipers. It's just a weird thing.
You don't do that on your free time?
I mean, I'm not like...
How do you know I'm not doing that?
Are either of us in like a position to influence power or
I'm
laws?
just doing it in my backyard by myself.
Exactly. That's absolutely fine. I encourage it. Go feral. But yeah, it's just weird. It's a really weird thing. I have a book about it too. But anyways, the club's motto is "Weaving spiders, come not here." In other words, leave business at the door, but no one really believes that because for decades, Bohemian Grove has been rumored to be a place where political deals are brokered, wars are discussed, global strategies are quietly shaped over cigars and scotch. Like stuff's happening there. It's like
it's the boys club.
It's like a B&I group on a massive scale where like presidents would be there and people who are also in, positions of power might have some benefit from a president making a certain decision about, I don't know, where to go to war. Maybe there's oil there, stuff like that. They're like, yeah, maybe you should go to war there. And if you do, let's do this and let's do that. So it's really weird. It's creepy. And Stockton Rush's father served as a vice president-elect of the Bohemian Club. So the fact that Stockton Rush's father wasn't just a member, but was rising to the highest ranks of the Bohemian Club, it places the Rush family at the very heart of American elite power. They weren't just wealthy, they were connected, insulated, and influential at levels most people will never see. This isn't just a story about an ambitious man and a doomed submersible. It's about legacy, entitlement, and a dynasty that always believed it was destined to do something extraordinary, no matter the cost. Now, from the beginning, Stockton Rush wasn't just expected to succeed. He was expected to leave a mark on history, and he would, just not in the way anyone imagined. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to talk about how Stockton kind of got to the place where he even wanted to start a company called OceanGate. Okay, can we talk about hair for a second? Because I'm officially obsessed with OneSkin's new scalp serum, OS1 Hair, and it's become a staple in my routine. If you already know OneSkin, you probably know about their OS1 peptide. That's the peptide that targets aging at the cellular level. And I've been doing a lot of research into peptides and how good they are for you. I started using OneSkin's skincare months ago. Genuinely loved it, especially the eye cream. So when they dropped a product for hair health, I was all in. And let me tell you, my scalp feels healthier. My hair looks fuller. I've even noticed little baby hairs coming in around my hairline. These are, the little hopeful sprouts that actually show you your hair is experiencing new growth. And I'm not the only one. People are raving about this stuff. One person said they tried everything for hair growth, and this is the first time they're actually seeing results. Another person said their hair's never felt this thick and full. It's not hype. OneSkin's backed it up with a clinical study showing significantly thicker and denser hair after just 6 months. Their entire research and development team is made up of brilliant women scientists, and everything is backed by clinical trials. So if you're ready to try it out, now is definitely the time. I like I said, love OneSkin. I use their eye cream every single day, twice a day. It's amazing, and Derek is going to tell you how you can check OneSkin out for yourself and how you can try their new hair serum.
That's right, OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company, and by focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. For a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using code CRIMEWEEKLY at oneskin.co. And CRIMEWEEKLY is all one word. Sometimes people say, hey, the code didn't work. You can't separate the words like you see on our show. CRIMEWEEKLY, all one word. Again, that's 15% off at oneskin.co with code CRIMEWEEKLY. After your purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support us by letting them know that we sent you. It would be greatly appreciated. Go check them out, oneskin.co, code CRIMEWEEKLY.
All right, we're back. So by the age of 19, Stockton Rush had already made headlines as the youngest jet transport-rated pilot in the world. He was still a teenager when he started flying DC-8s in Saudi Arabia during the Hajj pilgrimage, taking semesters off from Princeton University to log hours in the sky. He actually kept his own private plane at the Princeton airport and pursued his aerospace engineering degree with the same intensity that he brought to the cockpit. So for his senior thesis, he designed a high-speed, ultralight aircraft. He wasn't just book smart, he was fearless. A friend recalled a last-minute flight through rain and turbulence to witness the launch of the Columbia Space Shuttle in 1981, piloted by none other than Rush himself. This friend from Princeton was like, yeah, we just decided, like, oh, we're going to go watch this space shuttle. We jumped in his plane, and then the wind was bad and it was raining, but he was completely cool as a cucumber, never rattled, right?
Well, those people have to be like that, pilots. And
he was like 19 though, dude.
Yeah, but it's something you're born with. You know, and it's just they do things that most of us would be like, yeah, no shot. But they'll even this whole Titan submersible, we're not talking about the details yet, but just the balls to go down there. Personally, I wouldn't do it, and I consider myself someone who will take some risks
and wants to make a mark on the world. Yeah,
want to make a mark, but I'm not going to go that far down in the water. I'm claustrophobic to begin with, but
right.
But I wouldn't do that, and so it takes a special type of person. I think about these pilots that hop in these little cockpits and fly planes at, 800 miles per hour, and they do it like they're driving a car. Yeah, they're just built different. It's just the way it is.
They sure are. I also think with the Titanic and with the Titan, a lot of it has to do with money, right? And we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But
well, it's a business for sure.
It's a business. It's a business that...
If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
It could be very lucrative, could be very financially lucrative. So Stockton Rush was known to be calm, poised, and unnervingly confident, and these traits would follow him all the way to the ocean floor. Now, initially, Rush had dreamed of becoming an astronaut, but he didn't have the best vision. His vision wasn't sharp enough to pass the necessary tests. But instead of giving up, he pivoted. So he ended up meeting Pete Conrad, who was an Apollo 12 commander and a personal friend of Stockton's father. So Stockton's father introduced Stockton to Pete Conrad. And Conrad was like, hey, you don't have to go to space to make a mark, but I highly suggest that you look into engineering, because if you're going to do anything in any kind of craft, you're going to want to know that craft inside and out. And so Pete Conrad encouraged Stockton to pursue engineering. And this was a move that would blend Stockton's hunger for exploration with his deep technical curiosity. He wasn't content to simply be along for the ride. He wanted to be put in control, to chart his own course. As he once said, he didn't want to be a passenger in space. He wanted to be like Captain Kirk. So after graduating from Princeton in 1984, Rush ended up marrying Wendy Wheel. Now, Wendy's family history bore its own dark tie to the sea.
Oh my God, not Wendy.
Yep, Wendy was the great-great-granddaughter of Ida and Isidore Strauss, incredibly wealthy first-class passengers who died on the Titanic.
Crazy.
So Isidore is crazy. Crazy. Isidore was a Bavarian-born businessman who jointly owned Macy's department store along with his brother Nathan. And in 1871, Isidore married Ida Bloom, and the couple were considered to be very much in love and especially close. Now, they'd been vacationing in Europe, and they planned to take another ship back home to the States, but fate intervened. Now, at that time, there were coal strikes in Europe, and coal from other ships had been diverted to the Titanic for its maiden voyage. So they ended up having to book passage for the Titanic's cursed maiden voyage in April of 1912. And after the iceberg collision, Ida was offered a spot on a lifeboat, which would have saved her life, but she refused. According to Jessica Strauss, another great-great-granddaughter, quote, they were in their 60s, had been together for many, many years, and had several children together. Ida would not go without her husband. Isidore was offered a place on another lifeboat, but he chose not to go without her. He begged her to get on, and she turned and said to him, Isidore, we've been together for all these years. Where you go, I go, end quote. Now, the couple was last seen arm in arm, sitting together on a pair of deck chairs. Isidore's body would eventually be recovered, but Ida's never would. And if you remember the movie Titanic, James Cameron showed an elderly couple holding each other in bed as the room flooded around them, and this scene was actually inspired by the real-life love story of Isidore and Ida Strauss, great-grandparents to Wendy Rush, whose husband would one day also perish as he attempted to return to the ship that had taken her ancestors' lives.
So first, this is a dumb question, but how do people know what they said on the boat? Like when she said, "Oh, I'm not. We've been together all this time. I'm not leaving without you." Like who reports on this?
All right, so I actually know this.
Okay, good. Well, I'm sure there's an answer for it, and I'm not disputing it. But I'm like, who came back and said, "Yeah, there was a couple. They said this to each other." You know.
So Ida had a female servant with her. I forget that servant's name. And Isidore had a male servant with him. That male servant's name was John. They ended up, I believe, giving their spot on the lifeboat to the female servant, who then reported back what had happened. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy. You remember that scene in Titanic where those two older people are holding each other in bed? Like, I always remember that scene. It was one of the most...
The water's rushing underneath the bed.
Oh, yes.
No, yeah. Or mine was the part that kills me every time is when the mom puts the babies in bed.
Mine is when she's got her kid's hand and then it's like they're in between the grate and the kid, like, she's like holding on and then the kid like lets go and gets pushed away. It's just...
I may have to watch the Titanic again for research purposes.
To cry.
What a great movie.
So, I mean, I saw it in the theater over and over again, and I sobbed like I was a kid, but...
We got to do a Crime Weekly watch party.
Oh, that would be fun. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So we got Wendy, Stockton's wife, who's got very close ties to the Titanic, right? And obviously Wendy comes from wealth and power and privilege. I mean, her great-great-great-grandparents owned a Macy's. So these families end up all marrying each other to keep the money and the power in one place. So Stockton Rush, he then began working for aerospace giant McDonnell Douglas in Seattle, testing F-15 fighter jets, but it was beneath the waves, not above the clouds, where his fascination would take root. He became an avid scuba diver, exploring the Red Sea, the Cayman Islands, Tahiti, and the Puget Sound in Seattle, but he did grow frustrated with the limitations of scubaing, you know, the gear, the
scubaing.
Scubaing? Is that a real word?
That stayed in there. Scubaing.
Scubaing. That's a real word. You knew what I meant.
Yeah,
it's not. It's definitely not. It's probably scuba diving, but...
Scuba diving. You know I'm a certified scuba diver, right?
Are you a certified scuba-er?
Scuba-ing?
Scuba-inger?
No, I am not.
I didn't know that. Really? You just said you were claustrophobic. So am I, and that would absolutely
certified
send
scuba
me...
diver. Patty certified. I used to go lobstering all the time with my buddy, and we'd go down. You can catch lobsters in the rocks and come back up. And I went as deep as I want to say 25, 30 feet. Not too deep. I never went super down there, but it is crazy at that depth. And yeah, even though I was claustrophobic, that didn't bother me for some reason.
That would have taken me out, I'll tell you what.
No, it was pretty fun. The only thing that got me nervous is the decompression sickness. Like, you'd have to come up at different levels, and I'd always be like, well, if my buoyancy's not correct and I go up too fast,
It's terrifying.
You have to be in a recompression chamber. That's not going to be fun.
And you can get embolisms, all sorts of things can go wrong.
No, but scuba diving is awesome.
I'm sure it would be, and I'm sure I would love it if I could get around. I'm always afraid that, like, my oxygen tank's going to...
Well, that's why you have an octopus.
Yeah. Like an actual octopus?
No, so it's your secondary hose. So whenever you see a scuba diver and they have like the main hose that's black or yellow, there's usually a second one that's like yellow or green. And that's a secondary respirator that's hooked up to that oxygen tank. And what you're supposed to do is you always have a partner with you. And part of the reason you always have a partner with you is because they have an octopus as well. So if you ever have a malfunction with your primary respirator, you can switch to your secondary, which is your octopus. But if there's a problem with the actual tank, because you're diving with someone else, or you're supposed to be, they'll have their octopus available so you can both use that same tank to get you back to the surface. That's why you're not supposed to dive alone.
But people do.
Well, I mean, I never did. But yeah, you could actually, in fact, the part of the reason I stopped diving was because my buddy moved away. I had met him at diving school, and then he moved, and I didn't have anybody else to go with.
Oh, you lost your scuba
diving buddy?
Yeah?
Yeah, man. Joe. Shout out Joe. I haven't even talked to him in years.
Now you'll have to watch Titanic and reach out to your old scuba buddy.
Maybe you'll be my diving buddy.
Yeah, right.
I would never let you be my diving buddy.
I would never let you let me.
Okay.
Sounds like a lot of ways to die there.
You have some freaking panic attack while we're down there, and all of a sudden you're holding on to my flipper.
Yeah, I absolutely would. I promise you. And I'd be like scrambling, like I'd be crawling on you, trying to get up to the surface, pushing you down. A real octopus would have to come and save you.
There's like when you're underneath, you communicate by clapping. So you clap, that's what you can hear underwater. So you clap your hands together, you pound your fists together, and you would just be clapping the minute we got underneath there. The whole time. I would just hear the clicking every 5 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it. I'm sorry. So Stockton Rush, he was diving like the Puget Sound. That's in Seattle. I don't know if anyone knows. It's freezing in there, like freezing. And he hated the suits you have to wear when you're diving in cold water, how like heavy and cumbersome they were. And he said, quote, Puget Sound is full of nutrients. So you have sharks and whales and crabs and dolphins and seals and anemones. It's an absolutely incredible place to dive, except that it's freezing. I loved what I saw, but I thought there's got to be a better way. And being in a sub and being nice and cozy and having a hot chocolate with you beats the heck out of freezing and going through 2-hour decompression hanging in deep water, end quote. I agree only about the hot chocolate thing. I would like hot chocolate. But
there's some crazy suits too. Like I had a neoprene suit, but you can actually have suits where you put a undergarments on it, but then you put this oversuit on, and the suit fills up with hot water.
No.
So I had buddies who were divers, and what they would do is they do the bridge repairs. So it's like 30 degrees outside, right? And the water's freezing. But what they would do is they'd get into this bigger suit. It fills up with hot water that's constantly being supplied to the suit and circulated. So they're underwater like 50, 60 feet deep repairing this bridge, and they're perfectly warm.
Yeah, this sounds like a lot of work and a lot of money too.
Oh, it's expensive. They get paid.
Yeah.
There was a part of me that was like, if I left law enforcement, I was thinking about going into commercial diving because there's so much money.
Dude, you could do that stuff where they like go and try to find missing people and stuff. It's so cool.
Dive teams, I would have loved to do that, but that's more the fire department for our agency. But I was thinking like bridge repair and stuff. They do cement work. So much money because there's such a select group of people who do that type of work. There's a lot of money in it, but it's not the most glamorous job. You know, it's friggin' dangerous.
Sounds like it sucks.
Yeah.
Honestly.
You're not looking at tropical fish down there. That's for sure.
No, you're not looking at dolphins and sea anemones.
No.
So Stockton Rush, he was like, listen, I love the ocean. I love exploring the ocean and the water, but he dreamed of a vessel that could take him deeper while he was warmer and safer. So he built one. By 2006, after earning an MBA from UC Berkeley and failing to buy an existing submersible, Stockton completed his own. And if I remember correctly, he got like a kit, sort of, I think from somebody in England. Like they sent him a kit and he just had to put it together. But it was a 12-foot long tube outfitted with a plexiglass window and a stomach down control position, meaning the driver, the operator, would be on his stomach. And it wasn't glamorous. It wasn't fast. But on his first dive, just 30 feet below the surface, Stockton was hooked. The silence, the strangeness, the alien quality of the underwater world called to him. And he believed as fervently as any explorer before him that the future of human discovery wasn't in the stars. It was in the sea. And when I wrote that, I actually took that from an interview that he said. He was like, it was like being on a different planet when I was down there, you know, like things that I had never seen before and things that you don't see every day. I felt like there, you know, I was surrounded by aliens and stuff.
Well, I mean, what do they say? It's like only like 10%. I'm off on these statistics, but it's like a very small part of the ocean has been explored.
There's a reason for that.
I'm just putting like there's a lot down there that could help with curing illnesses and stuff. I mean, that's probably the truth. They're looking in space for those things. There's probably stuff in the ocean that could help as well.
Well, from that moment on, Rush dedicated himself to deep sea innovation, and he was astounded to learn how few private submersibles existed. And he was even more shocked by the lack of funding and regulatory support for ocean exploration compared to NASA. Why, he asked, did we pour billions into space exploration while the majority of Earth's oceans remained unmapped and unexplored?
Earth is really a water planet. I think we probably all appreciate that. But I also was a space person, and half our mission specialist clients who go to the Titanic have either been to space or are going to space. One of the reasons I started the business was I didn't understand why we were spending 1,000 times as much money to explore space as we were to explore Earth and the oceans. The oceans. And NASA has come out repeatedly now talking about the fact that there are more more liquid water in the solar system than they imagined. That many things, Pluto as well as moons of Jupiter and Saturn, have liquid oceans capped over. And the belief is that there's far more aquatic life in our solar system and in the universe. And I didn't understand why we weren't exploring it. And part of that gets down to the media, and I'll come back to this, which is appreciated that people are all about emotion. And we've had such amazing movies about space and not as many about the ocean. The ocean is a scary spot. And because of that, I think is one of the big things, and what I wanted to do with the business was just move the needle, get people excited about the ocean, explore the ocean, and discover what was out there. So we all get the 3/4 of the planet is water, but that's really deceiving. It's actually 98% of the livable volume. So if you think about livable volume, you have on the surface from the earth to the dirt to the top of the trees. In the ocean, it's the full depth. People don't appreciate the average depth of the ocean is 4,000 meters. And yet there are only a handful of subs, I think about 5 subs. Most are owned by governments, run by research institutions. There is no private access to the deep ocean. And yet there's all this life to be discovered. And as we go down to the Titanic, it's amazing the creatures we see on the 2.5-hour descent, the most bizarre things you can imagine.
Before we continue, and I know some people are not very fond of Stockton, and maybe I won't be by the end of the series, but can we just stop for a second and acknowledge that this guy's brilliant and he's accomplished. Yeah, I mean, he's brilliant. I mean, what he's been able to accomplish, just his resume that you've read so far. I'm not talking about how he overlooks certain things, and you don't agree, obviously, you know more about him, but I'm just coming into this cold, and without knowing all the details or the things that he circumvented or ignored that resulted in this tragedy, just on the surface, what we've talked about with his resume so far, his education, his ambitions, his courage to go and do things that are dangerous to do for the sake of exploration, I don't think it's wrong to say that that's impressive. I mean, you're talking about being 19 years old and flying these planes. I mean, this is an impressive person and someone who has a lot of talent. Maybe didn't use it the right way, but I think it'd be wrong to not acknowledge that this is a reality. This guy he had a lot of potential. He had a lot of potential, and you can hear when he speaks that he definitely knows what he's talking about.
He had a lot of potential, but I think potential combined with hubris is probably the worst combination ever. Hubris and ego and potential are really...
I don't disagree, and that's why we're talking about him today, and that's why we are where we are. I'm just saying, compartmentalizing the two, we can acknowledge on one hand that this guy was a very impressive person as far as what he was able to accomplish.
Yeah, I will give you that, and we will discuss it more as we go along.
Okay. Like I said, some people be pissed at me for saying it, but I'm going along with this, and reading his resume as you're speaking it, it's impressive.
Well, Stockton Rush said and saw the submersible industry as obscenely safe and woefully stagnant, choked, in his view, by decades of government overregulation. Safety, he believed, had become the enemy of progress, and that belief, that calculated defiance of convention that Stockton Rush is known for, that would eventually shape the entire philosophy of OceanGate. Now, the company was founded by Stockton Rush and Guillermo Sonolin in 2009, and they claimed their mission was to open up the oceans to exploration, discovery, research, and commercialization. They wanted to build a private sector alternative to the government-run deep manned submersible program.
Sonolin met Rush in the summer of 2009. The idea behind OceanGate was Rush would put in the money and Sonolin would run the business. But Sonolin says they had no intention of building the subs themselves.
Our vision was to create a fleet of 4 or 5 deep diving submersibles. At the time, we were thinking they'd be 6,000 meters, capable of carrying 5 people, available for charter anywhere in the world.
Now, in 2010, OceanGate did acquire a 5-person submersible built in 1973 by the Perry Submarine Company. The submersible had once operated in the North Sea oil fields as a ferry for commercial divers, but in 1994, it was modified by Marlin submarines to be adapted for recreational use, such as tourism and research. The submersible, which would become known as Antipodes, had a modified hull, was tested up to 1,000 feet, and was certified by the American Bureau of Shipping Standards. When OceanGate purchased Antipodes for $295,000, it had already completed 430 dives as deep as 920 feet, and the company began advertising it as a chartered sub, which would cost between $15,000 and $20,000 a day to kind of like rent and charter. Antipodes was also certified as an oceanographic research vehicle with the Coast Guard, and OceanGate got their first taste of notoriety and praise in June of 2015. when researchers aboard Antipodes were out studying artificial reefs off the coast of Miami, and they discovered a mostly intact wreck of a U.S. Navy World War II fighter plane lying upside down, 240 feet deep. So let's take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about that. You know how in true crime, it's always the little habits that give people away, the things that they can't help doing again and again, even when they know better. Well, maybe it's time we talked about our own habits, because whether it's reaching for something out of boredom, stress, or just routine, there is a smarter way to handle it, and that's where Fume comes in. Fume is a flavored air device, and it's completely different from anything else out there. No vapor, no nicotine, no batteries, just clean, plant-based flavor and a super sleek, reusable design that gives your hands and mouth something to do without the guilt. Honestly, the Fume device...
I got it right here. If you're not on YouTube, you can just hear it, but it's got the magnets there. That's the thing I like. It also has the airflow dial.
And you guys know I love to fidget. Derek definitely does.
Oh, we all know.
Now, my personal favorite flavor right now is the peach blush. It tastes so true to life. Like, it tastes like a peach. And like I said, the whole thing just feels good in your hand. It's perfect for that moment when you'd usually reach for something out of habit, except this time you're doing it on your own terms. And Fume has already helped over 400,000 people take steps towards better habits. Now it's your turn, and Derek is going to tell you how you can check Fume out for yourself.
Yeah, so I actually just recently tried a new one that is not new for Fume, but new to me, maple pepper. I have it up here on the screen. This is my second packet of it.
Is it a little spicy?
It is a little spicy. If you like bacon, you're going to probably like this one. That might be my new go-to, although I still go to the orange vanilla when I'm really in need of my comfort.
A little sweetness.
That's right. So if you want to check them out, you can use our code CRIMEWEEKLY to get a free gift with your journey pack. All you have to do is head over to tryfume.com. That's tryfum.com. Use our code CRIMEWEEKLY and claim this limited time offer today. You won't regret it. Go check them out.
All right, we're back. So Antipodes is being used as kind of, research. And this is where Stockton Rush and OceanGate started. And this is where they said they kind of wanted to stay, where they wanted to be able to open up the oceans and open up bodies of water to better research so they could find things, like you said, maybe things that could cure diseases, maybe new species and things that had never been discovered. And they found this World War II fighter plane. And Bob Rasmussen, who is the director of the National Aviation Museum in Pensacola, Florida, he told the Miami Herald that more than 12,000 Hellcats, those are the fighter jets, they had been delivered to the Navy, but only a handful of them were still around. And he said, quote, "The discovery of one more, even under 240 feet of Atlantic Ocean, is important to naval aviation history," end quote. So now OceanGate and Stockton Rush, they're being touted in the media
they're
as
on
like,
the map.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this is huge. This is so important for research, so important for history. And Stockton Rush added to the conversation, claiming that if someone was willing to pay possibly hundreds of millions of dollars, Antipodes stood a good chance of finding other planes missing to history, such as Flight 19 and even Amelia Earhart's plane. He said, quote, "The technology to find these planes exists. It's really a question of, is it worth the investment?" End quote.
Isn't that the case in a lot of things, right? All comes down to money.
Yeah, of course. But, once
you do
again,
need manpower. You do need resources. You do need technology. You do need equipment. I get it. And it is a good question. Is spending all this money, like, let's say, to find what happened to Amelia Earhart?
Plane,
like,
yeah.
If you find her and it cost $200 million, yeah, it'd be cool to find her at this point. But does the cost justify the result?
Yeah.
And we know she's no longer with us.
Yeah, there's obviously a small sector of people, and specifically in research and history, that would love this.
They would
right?
argue it is, yeah.
Yeah, there's a big mystery of, like, where did her plane even go down, really? Is she still alive, or did she survive it? There's so many questions out there in the historical research community, but that's not where the money is. The money is in, like, medical research, government research, Department of Defense stuff. That's where the government and even private sector companies would pour a lot of money into, because the resulting discoveries, let's say if you wanted to send Stockton Rush and his sub down to find a cure for cancer, well, obviously that result would be beneficial to people like pharmaceutical companies because now they can make a ton of money. So they might be willing to invest. But just for
I would
historical,
argue they wouldn't want you to find a
yeah,
cure,
I
but
mean, exactly.
that's a whole
But
different
you know,
conversation, right?
I used it as an example.
You know what I mean?
But
I don't
a
have to
company,
convince you of that.
I know you don't. A company that will find something that they can market and sell for a ton of money, they might be willing to put money into this. But just for historical and research purposes, if I had the money, I would.
Justify.
But yeah, a lot of people don't really care about that. So in May of 2013, OceanGate announced that it would work in collaboration with the University of Washington's Applied Physics Lab to build a new 5-person submersible capable of reaching depths of 3,000 meters. This submersible will be named Cyclops and feature a carbon fiber hull shaped like a bullet that could plunge down to depth in less than 60 minutes. Now, this is important. Remember, University of Washington's Applied Physics Labs, the APL. This is important as well as Stockton Rush's work with NASA and Boeing, because after the Titan submersible disaster, all these people and companies are going to come out and be like, no, we weren't as involved as he made it seem like we were. So that's going to be a whole nother layer that we have to dig into later on.
A new ultra-strong, lightweight manned submersible, born of the partnership between the UW's Applied Physics Laboratory and OceanGate.
Cyclops was developed with the goal of being a totally new approach to manned submersibles.
Cyclops is designed to take up to 5 people as deep as 10,000 feet.
It could do both research, environmental assessment work for oil and gas, mining, surveying work, biopharma, and even adventure tourism.
OceanGate brings to the table experience in small subs. APL brings to the table
the ability for a company like OceanGate to come into the university and gain access to resources and gain access to technology that they may not have available to them. APL brings in the ability to do computational fluid dynamics. In other words, how much force, how much power does it require to move this vehicle through the water at a given speed?
Cyclops is aimed at customers who need to charter deep-sea access, previously the domain of military submarines, or submersibles tethered to support vessels of a size and cost Cyclops won't need.
We can use an ocean-going tug that might be $10,000 a day versus a specialized research ship that would run, say, $100,000 a day.
Cyclops will employ carbon fiber reinforced plastic, the same material Boeing uses to build jetliner wings.
New carbon fiber manufacturing techniques, new high purity glass, as well as new control systems.
Why risk people where robots can go?
Subs are extremely safe when operated as a research vessel, not as a military sub. Robots can't do everything. There's a place for people in the ocean, and we're looking at first commercial operations in 2016.
So you heard Stockton Rush, and he's like, hey, this could be big for, research, environmental, biopharma. He's using all this. And then last, he's like, and commercial tourism. And I really think that the commercial tourism was always his main goal, because that's where the money is,
It's
right?
about money. And you took the words out of my mouth, because not only that, he said things like, oh, there's a place for humans in the sea or in the ocean. And there's things that humans can do that robots can't. I would argue the robots can do mostly everything you need to do in the ocean. It's just he's trying to ensure that there's a space where
for paying customers
to go down in the ocean, because if you remove that, because he is a smart guy, he's around a smart team, they could probably develop a sub that doesn't need a human being to go down there with it, which removes any type of safety issues you have as far as the life of a human being. And yet, no, he's like, we want that. That's where, like you just said, that's where the money is.
He talks about this a lot, and he's always kind of like, research and finding new things. Yeah, that's where you're going to get your accolades. That's how people are going to know about you. But the reason you want people to know about you is so that eventually they're like, oh, I want to go in that submersible. I want to see the ocean and all these species of fish and all these shipwrecks and, World War II planes. I want that. What a great experience. And a lot of people are going to think this is safer than going to space. But is it? Not really. It's not really. So at this point, both the University of Washington and Boeing were contributing to the design of Cyclops, with Boeing specifically focused on using the carbon fiber for the hull of this submersible. Now, Cyclops 1 is widely considered to be the first crewed submersible to use a carbon fiber hull, and its creation marked a major departure from traditional sub designs. Prior to Cyclops 1, most submersibles used steel, titanium, or aluminum alloys for their pressure hulls. And why did they use those? Because these materials are known for their predictable behavior under extreme compression, which in the water, the deeper you go, the higher and more intense the compression gets. So OceanGate, under Stockton Rush's leadership, wanted to challenge the status quo. They believed that carbon fiber composites, commonly used in aerospace, could be applied to deep sea exploration to create a vessel that was lighter, more fuel efficient, and easier to transport. Now, like you heard him say in the clip, he's like, we don't need a specialized ship for this. All we need is just any ship, basically any large ship that can go out in the ocean and be used as a support vessel. We don't need these expensive ships. We can just use a regular ship, and that's going to cut down on costs. Why is it important to cut down on costs? Well, because if he's using this for tourism, he's going to have to rent that boat that brings the sub out to the water. And if he's paying less for that boat, then more of the money he gets from the paying customers are going to go, it's going to go in his pocket.
More net.
So
it's like anything, right? When you can increase margins, it's a more successful business. The question always becomes, when do you sacrifice quality?
Yeah, when do you sacrifice quality for safety?
Well, safety even more importantly, but like even on just a business level of like with Criminal Coffee, we could do a lower costing bean. We could do a bean that's not as from a certain farm that maybe doesn't produce the highest quality.
Mm-hmm. And it would be cheaper, which means we would make more per bag. Yeah.
We could make our bags cheaper. We could do a lot of things to lower the cost associated with our company, but yet the experience for the consumer would decrease. We'd make more money, but the product wouldn't be as good. And like you said, that's just something you're consuming. With this is about safety. It's about protecting your consumer. So when you're cutting corners there, that's a whole different ballgame.
Especially when you've made it clear from the get that you want to bring just regular old civilians down there who are paying you for that experience.
You are responsible for their safety because clearly they don't know the in and outs. They're trusting you that you're taking the proper precautions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And let's talk about carbon fiber for a minute, because yes, it's true. Carbon fiber is used in things like planes and stuff. And so there's a reason.
I use carbon fiber in my 3D prints all the time, showing my nerd here, but love carbon fiber filament.
Things like skis, like sports equipment, stuff like that, very common. Carbon fiber's high strength to weight ratio makes it an appealing candidate, but its performance under repeated compressive loads, especially let's say in a subwater environment, that was not well understood at extreme depths at the time that Stockton Rush and OceanGate were creating these subs. Cyclops 1 was an experimental prototype intended as a test platform and a proof of concept for the carbon fiber hull idea. Now, carbon fiber is a composite material made of extremely thin strands of carbon atoms bonded together in a crystalline formation. And then these strands are bundled together and woven into a fabric, and then they're combined with a resin to create a rigid, strong, and lightweight material.
Super strong, super lightweight, used in cars all the time, used in a lot of different applications to have speed with durability.
Now, carbon fiber is often used in aerospace for planes and spacecraft because it does have many benefits in that sort of environment. It resists being pulled apart. It's stronger than steel for its weight. It doesn't rust or degrade like metals. It's very rigid. It doesn't flex much under tension, which makes it ideal for planes because it's strong and lightweight. However, the pressurization cycles in aircrafts are moderate compared to what deep sea submersibles endure. Now, at the time that Cyclops was being developed, Rush and Robert Miyamoto, the director of the Applied Physics Lab at the University of Washington, they talked about how they planned to integrate modern control systems into the vehicle. So they were going to replace the many dials and levers on submersibles with joysticks, like video game joysticks.
PlayStation remotes.
Yeah, and more automated systems that allowed it to operate with a single pilot. Stockton Rush said it was like going from a Model T to a Tesla. In June of 2013, OceanGate teamed with Nova Southeastern University to study invasive lionfish in Florida, and then a few months later in August, OceanGate announced that the University of Washington and Boeing had completed a design feasibility study for the hull design of Cyclops 1. They said that the basic hull design had been validated as being able to reach depths of 3,000 meters. That's about 9,800 feet. And Cyclops 1 would allow its 5 members, their crew members, to observe underwater environments for up to 8 continuous hours. Jerry Young, who was the head of Boeing Research and Technology Director of Materials, he said, quote, We're looking forward to bringing our design and manufacturing knowledge of hybrid materials to help OceanGate meet this technology challenge, end quote. Remember, later Boeing and the University of Washington and NASA, they're all going to be like, what are you talking about? We weren't that involved. It seems like they were all pretty deeply involved. All right. So the following August, Macklemore, you know who Macklemore is, right?
The artist?
Yeah, like the singer-rapper.
Yeah.
He joined the crew of Antipodes on a dive in the Puget Sound that was filmed for the Discovery Channel's Shark Week. So once again, OceanGate, Stockton Rush, they're getting some more sort of
notoriety.
Media attention. Yeah. And then in 2015, OceanGate launched Cyclops 1, the first submersible to be built by the company. Now, according to the founder, Guillermo Sonolin, who ended up leaving OceanGate in 2013, it had never been in the cards for them to build their own submersibles. During the Coast Guard's hearing about the Titan implosion, Sonolin said that they eventually realized they would need to build their own to achieve their business model of giving humanity greater access to the ocean. He said, quote, if you think about our business requirements of being able to carry 5 people 6,000 meters without a dedicated mothership deployable anywhere in the world, none of the sub-builders could really do that. Then, if you did factor in the cost, yeah, it was going to be ridiculously expensive, end quote. He said that both he and Stockton Rush convinced themselves that it would be possible to build a sub that could meet all their business requirements, and that is when they started looking at carbon fiber as a potential alternate for a pressure hull. So in 2013, as OceanGate shifted to developing its own submersibles, Rush actually took over as CEO, with Guillermo Sonolin saying that it made sense for Rush to take the reins because they were transitioning from an operations phase, which was Guillermo's kind of main, expertise, and they were going into an engineering phase, which for Stockton Rush, with his degrees and his experience and expertise, that would be more his wheelhouse, and he should now take over. And then Guillermo Sonolin left the company, but not under bad terms, allegedly.
Yeah, I know we talked a little bit about carbon fiber here, and when I was watching the original documentary on this, I forgot what it was on. There's been so many, but I know this carbon fiber conversation is a big part of it because in theory, you would think, okay, you have these pressurized cabins on planes using carbon fiber and it works great. Maybe the same would be applicable underwater. Now, we're going to find out that's not the case, but the question that I'm going to have by the end of the series, as I start to judge Stockton Rush and anybody else he was associated with, was the decision for this carbon fiber made because of cost effectiveness, or was it made because they truly believed it could be an alternative underwater and have the same sustainability, the same durability that it would have in the air? And that's the big question we have to answer, because I think based on that answer, we'll decide how a lot of people view Stockton.
I mean, we're going to talk about some tests they did and stuff, but
right, that's going to be the great stuff, because if it's proven that he knew that this wasn't going to be a healthy alternative, it wasn't going to support what they wanted to do, and yet he still did it, that's a major problem.
In my opinion, the tests that they did showed that the carbon fiber would not hold up
Start to crack,
under pressure.
Right?
And it wasn't even a matter of if it would happen. It was just a matter of when.
Right.
And nobody would have the ability to determine that. And we're going to talk about why they wouldn't have the ability to determine that. But there's also rumors that I'm going to talk about where they purchased the carbon fiber from Boeing. But allegedly, the carbon fiber they purchased from Boeing was over its expiration date.
So like the shitty stuff that Boeing was just looking to get rid of?
They got it for cheaper because they didn't want to pay full price for the carbon fiber.
You can't cut corners with stuff like this.
You think?
You can't.
I mean, that's putting it lightly.
You can't, regardless of the reason behind it. Oh, we're just trying to do more with less. Like, you can't, even if you still think it's good. Oh, carbon fiber is still, 90% effective at that point. You need 100%. You have people on board that's submersible. You need it to be at the best of its ability at all times. Yeah, that's crazy.
As an engineer, he should know what happens to carbon fiber and how easily it does crack and degrade under pressure, and how it's really difficult to figure out that that's happening. We're going to talk about that, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, because I know a lot of people are not fans of Stockton Rush. It sounds like you may be one of them, and I'm coming from it just looking at this guy who, in my opinion, was a smart guy and had a lot of talent, a lot of knowledge that could have been used in a good way. But it does seem, just as we're like halfway through this first episode, that he started to get a little bit of tunnel vision on the commercial applications of this and how much money could be made in that venue. He wasn't as much concerned about exploration from the standpoint of curing illnesses or finding things that were missing. More so, how could I monetize this?
Yeah, and I think that all that other stuff, like if it happened to be a byproduct,
yes, he's
then
cool with it.
He'd be cool because once again, it's just adding to his
It's
legacy.
PR.
It's adding to his mark on the world that he wants to leave. And I'm not denying he wasn't a smart guy, but it's that intelligence mixed with the ego that becomes a problem. And also how he grew up, born into a very influential, wealthy family, probably told from the moment he could hear and understand words, you're going to do great things, Stockton, just like your ancestors before you, and you're going to make a mark on this world, and the world is your oyster. And this entitlement that builds from being raised in that environment, this entitlement of like, I have money, I have power, I know people. And, there's even stories that were told during the Coast Guard hearings where he was like, well, if I can't find someone to like push this through, I'll just buy someone off. I can do what I want because I have money, because I have power, because this money and influence gives me the ability to do whatever I want that other people, normal people couldn't do. And I will do it because this is my legacy and that's what I care about.
Legacy is a great thing to talk about here because you mentioned it earlier, and I've seen it in places before. He was someone who admired Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos,
He wanted to be the Elon Musk of the ocean.
Sea, yeah.
And how do you do that? You got to be first. You got to take chances.
Got to be innovative,
You don't want someone else to steal your thunder. And so that can allow you to make mistakes as well. And I think that is a part of this narrative.
It almost also felt like he kind of didn't think anybody else was going to steal his thunder because most intelligent people who were well-versed in this area of expertise knew that it was dangerous and not possible, and they weren't even trying. So he was like, oh, this is pretty much an open market, man. Like, no one's going to try to, compete with me here. This is all mine. I won't even have the challenge of having somebody like racing with me. It's what I want to do, and this is like a pretty much untapped market. And once again, there's a reason for that. So the Cyclops 1 submersible was steered with a video game controller. It used computer air fans in the air filtration system and showed sonar data on a consumer-grade flat screen. So, once again, we're cutting costs where they think they can. OceanGate announced that they were planning to build 2 more submersibles, both with carbon fiber composite hulls. The Cyclops 2 would be ready by June of 2016, and the Cyclops 3 would be completed by early 2017. This was very unrealistic timetable.
An ambitious timeline.
Yeah. The Cyclops 1 had 5 dives planned as part of its sea trials, and it was reported that the company expected testing to be completed by June. Now, in June, investigative reporter Mark Harris met with Stockton Rush to learn more about his innovative submersible and to take a trip in Cyclops 1 himself. Harris said that when he met OceanGate's CEO, Stockton Rush was already styling himself as a subaquatic Elon Musk. And Rush told Harris, quote, I wanted to be the first person on Mars until I realized there was nothing there. But in the ocean, there are new life forms, things people have never discovered. My goal is to move the needle. End quote. So the 2 men went for a test dive in Elliott Bay in Seattle, and at first everything seemed great, but then things took a turn, according to Mark Harris, who said, quote, 90 minutes later and 130 meters deeper, we were totally lost. First, the thruster software had glitched, leaving us floating just above the seafloor. Now the sub's compass was acting up. The shipwreck we aimed to capture, a rail ferry that had once carried Teddy Roosevelt, was nowhere to be seen. All I could spy outside the Cyclops 1 forward dome was the occasional salmon dancing in the frigid water. As I began to feel the chill seeping through the sub's steel hull, Rush asked me to open my iPhone's compass app. He wanted to compare it to the one on his phone. The headings did not match, but he rebooted the thrusters, and we set off in what he was pretty sure was the right direction. You're heading in exactly the wrong direction, said a faint voice transmitted via an acoustic link from the support ship tracking us on the surface. We eventually located the sunken ship, its rotting bow emerging into the Cyclops headlight. Back at the dock, Rush brushed off the problem we had encountered. This is exactly why OceanGate started with the Cyclops 1, he said, rather than anything capable of deeper diving. I could have built a multi-million-dollar version, and all of a sudden I've got to figure out really stupid stuff like the magnetic compass, he told me. The Cyclops 1 is getting us ready. When we do the Cyclops 2, then all these bugs will be out. End quote.
Man, can you imagine? I mean, it's not funny, but can you imagine being on this ocean floor and the thrusters stop working?
And then he's like, open your compass on your iPhone?
Yeah, I'm going to be looking at him like, what?
He's
What
like,
are
can
you
you just pull
talking
up your
about,
compass?
dude?
I just want to, and it's like, first of all, you're under the water, so service ain't going to be great
No.
to begin
and you can't
with.
get out of the boat. You can't get out of the submarine.
You can't move around trying to find no. And then
You're stuck.
and then he's like, hold on, I'll get us going in the right direction. And then the support ship is like, you're not going in the right direction. And he's like, oh, let me try this direction. Like completely guessing down there, guessing with an investigative journalist. So there's like a lot of lack of self-awareness here, I think. Like he doesn't realize that this seems bad because to him, he's like, yeah, this is experimental. We're pushing the boundaries. We're breaking the ceiling. But to the guy who's under the water with him, he's like, yo, this is my life, dude. I don't.
I'm not trying to be a guinea pig.
I don't want to be a guinea pig. Like you kind of made it seem like this was all, good and perfect. But now I'm down here and you're like, yeah, this is why we started with this. And when we do our next version, it's all going to be fine. So
Here's where I sit on this. I mean, listen, these explorers, they're a different breed. They're pushing the boundaries. And I think there's two things that can happen. There's going to be mistakes when you're doing something for the first time, right? When we went to space for the first time, I mean, there's going to be things that don't go according to plan. The problem is the lack of acknowledgement. That's the issue here, which you're bringing up. It's okay to have those things because when you're doing something that nobody has ever done before, you're going to have mishaps. Even with Elon Musk, we see with SpaceX, there's rockets that are landing perfectly, and then he has some that hit the ground and blow up immediately. And he's like, yep, that's part of doing business. But the difference is they're looking at that, they're evaluating the data, and they're taking measures to ensure it doesn't happen again. And they're doing that well before they put anyone on the rocket ship, right? This is different. He's risking the lives of others while, quote unquote, working the bugs out. That is the problem.
yeah, and the fact that he minimizes all this stuff, and he always does this, that you come back up to the surface and everybody down there with you was like, holy shit, that was crazy. And he's like, nah, not a big deal.
No, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal.
You could have died.
And if you minimize this stuff enough to others, you'll start to almost mirror that same feeling to yourself. If you're like lying to others enough, if you're denying enough, then you'll start to convince yourself, hey, it's not that big of a deal. And that may be what happened here. But let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. This episode is brought to you by IQBAR, our exclusive snack sponsor. IQBAR makes better for you plant protein-based snacks with brain-boosting nutrients to refuel, nourish, and satisfy your hunger without the sugar crash. And let me tell you, I mean, you guys know, if you've been listening to Derek and I for a while, we both love IQBAR.
It's like the official snack of Crime Weekly.
Yeah, I do. I eat IQ bars several times a day. When IQ Bar sent over their ultimate sampler pack, I obviously ripped into the lemon blueberry first. That's been one of my favorites for a while. Obviously, these bars taste great, but the real win is how they make you feel. I've been using them to power through long research and writing days. They've officially earned a permanent spot in my studio snack drawer. I love them. And IQ bars are made with high quality ingredients packed with plant protein, and they're totally free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial sweeteners. So it is a snack you can feel good about, and your brain will thank you. And it's also a snack that you can enjoy any time of day, even if it's midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning and you just want something sweet. You don't have to have the guilt of, eating like a pint of ice cream and then going to bed. You can get your sweet spot hit with IQ Bar and feel good about it.
People think they're like, oh, you always promoting that IQ Bar. Is it actually any good? And I'm like, dude, here, try one. And like, oh, it's actually good. I'm like, yeah, that's why we keep promoting it. That's why we keep signing up to talk about it, because we actually believe in the product. So if you haven't already tried it, you need to. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners and viewers 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. To get 20% off, just text weekly to 64,000. That's weekly to 64,000. One more time, text weekly to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. All right, we're back from break. And just to piggyback on what you said, I also think it creates culture, right? Like, he's the top person in that organization and he's complacent in a lot of these things. And when he's flippant about these quote unquote bugs, the people underneath him could become that way as well. And now it creates a culture that's dangerous for everybody that's working on the project, but also the consumers of that product. So it's a major issue. And at the top of the food chain, if you're the boss, you have to be the most critical of everything that's being done.
And here's what I think happened also, not just with the culture of like oh, well, the boss thinks it's okay, and he's the engineer, and he's the one with this illustrious, education in this field. So if he thinks it's okay, it's okay. It's also a culture of being afraid to speak up because there's, he gets upset. He doesn't like when people kind of push back. He's like, I'm the smart one here. I'm the boss. What are you peons even, questioning me for? And when enough of that happens, which as we'll find out happened quite a bit, there's going to be a culture of silence because people are too afraid to speak up because they're afraid to be told they're stupid, they're dumb, they don't know what they're talking about, or to have him angry at them, which could put their job in jeopardy, and then just their reputation in general. So
yeah, don't like what I'm saying, get lost.
And that's kind of what happened with the next person we're going to talk about, who's David Lockridge. And David Lockridge, for anybody who's familiar with this submersible disaster, he was actually considered to be the whistleblower who was one of the earliest people to start raising concerns about OceanGate and the submersibles that they were creating. So in May of 2015, OceanGate hired David Lockridge as their director of marine operations. And Lockridge, originally from Scotland, he had extensive experience as a submarine pilot. He was trained to recognize flaws and points of failure in subsea equipment. He'd been in the Royal Navy, he'd worked as a commercial diver, and he'd been working with submersibles for over 20 years by the time he took this position with OceanGate. Now, at the time, Lockridge was running tests with the company's two existing subs, which would be Antipodes and Cyclops. They were already classed, which means the vessels had been inspected, tested, and certified by an independent classification society, in this case, the American Bureau of Shipping, or ABS. So this was done to ensure that they met specific safety, design, and construction standards for operation. And Lockridge said when he started with the company, OceanGate was already building their next sub, which was originally supposed to be called Cyclops 2, but as we know, that name would be changed to the Titan. And he was told that the Titan was also set to be classed. Being classed matters so much for submersibles because in the deep sea conditions, pressure increases by about 1 atmosphere every 33 feet. So at Titanic depths, which is over 12,000 feet, that's over 400 atmospheres of pressure, which is roughly 6,000 pounds per square inch. So without rigorous engineering and oversight, a submersible can catastrophically implode. Now, being classed doesn't automatically mean that nothing will go wrong, but it dramatically reduces the risk by ensuring the vessel has met internationally recognized safety standards and was built by people who are accountable to those standards. So when Lockridge came on, he said the Titan was just a concept. So this would be the Cyclops 2. It was just a concept, and it was his understanding that he was supposed to assist with the build and that his experience working with the classing system was going to be very important in producing a successful product in the Cyclops 2, aka the Titan.
At the same time, the intention was once everything was finished with Cyclops 1 and the company and APL were happy with everything, those systems would be fully not integrated, so they weren't going to get moved from Cyclops, but they would be built hardier, stronger, more reliable, and they were going to get built for Titan. When I moved across, there was nothing. Nothing was produced, nothing was finalized with APL.
So he's basically saying that the Cyclops 1 was sort of a prototype, right? It was seaworthy and could go down, but it was a prototype to make another vessel, which would be the Titan, that could go deeper and go down for longer. And that whatever
better equipment.
Yeah, whatever systems and equipment they had in Cyclops 1 that were successful with the depths they wanted to go to, they were going to make those better.
Right.
So that the Titan could reach lower depths and be under there for longer and withstand more pressure, which you would need at lower depths. That's what he's saying. And he said when he came on, nothing was ready for that. And he was supposed to kind of like help with that because of his knowledge. Now in 2016, David Lockridge was aboard the Cyclops 1 when it ventured down off the coast of Nantucket to visit the famed shipwreck, the Andrea Doria. Now, the Andrea Doria went down in 1956 after colliding with another vessel. It's one of the best-known shipwrecks in New England. It sits about 200 feet below the ocean surface, making it a popular site for divers who do refer to it as the Mount Everest of diving. And that's because it's very dangerous. For the past 6 decades, divers have used this wreck to test their limits, and more than a dozen lost their lives while trying to navigate the wreck. And Stockton Rush spoke about the shipwreck and the rate at which it was deteriorating. saying, quote, "When the Andrea Doria first went down, it was pristine and you went straight into the hull and through the windows. Now it's harder to get inside and far more dangerous. Imagine it as a collapsing cave. Once the cave loses its basic structure, it deteriorates very quickly," end quote. So Stockton Rush knew how dangerous this shipwreck was if you got too close, not only for divers, but for someone exploring it in a submersible. The purpose of this mission with the Cyclops 1 was to capture HD video and 3D sonar images. And they said they wanted to do this because they were like, hey, we want to get an exact image of how bad this shipwreck is deteriorating, and hopefully this will assist in divers who go down there so they'll kind of know which parts to avoid, which parts are more dangerous, and so we'll hopefully, reduce the risk of life. From what OceanGate reported, you would have thought this dive was a resounding success, but David Lockridge had other things to say. He said that the dive was meant to be his. He was going to be piloting the Cyclops 1, and he was going to take 4 paying clients down with him. But at the last minute, Stockton Rush decided he was going to be the one to man the submersible. I also want to mention that although David Lockridge refers to the passengers of the sub as paying customers, OceanGate called them mission specialists, a term borrowed from NASA and professional exploration, implying that these paying customers were part of the crew, not just along for the ride.
It's all branding. It's all for experience.
And listen, this actually wasn't just some clever branding. It reframed the passengers' legal and operational role aboard the sub. So OceanGate claimed that these individuals were actually contributing to the mission, such as helping operate sonar, taking photographs, gathering data. And under U.S. Coast Guard and international maritime law, a vessel that carries passengers for hire triggers much stricter safety requirements, especially under the Passenger Vessel Safety Act of 1993. And this was actually a law that Stockton Rush often and openly criticized. He was like, this is ridiculous. Their safety concerns are just really keeping people from seeing the ocean. So by calling their passengers, their paying passengers, mission specialists, OceanGate attempted to sidestep classification as a passenger vessel, and by extension, the burdens of meeting classing requirements. This would also later help frame Titan as a non-commercial research or exploratory craft rather than a tourism vessel, even though its clients were paying a lot of money for each dive. Yeah.
No, I mean, and when I say by branding, I think it's more for experience from the consumer's perspective where, again, if you have aspirations to explore, whether it's, the stars or the sea, I'd rather be called a mission specialist, personally. I'd like mine to say mission specialist Levasseur as opposed to, tourist Levasseur. I want my jumpsuit to say mission specialist, even if I have 2 weeks watching a video on how to run the sonar equipment with the PlayStation controller. Yeah, I'm a certified stud. I want to be a mission specialist.
So do you remember the Challenger?
The spaceship?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I remember.
I was like, wait, is this a trick question?
The spaceship. So I remember when I was a kid in 5th grade, they brought us to a Challenger thing and they were redoing it and they put us all in there and they gave us badges and they said mission specialist.
100%.
Yeah, but you're not a 5th grader and you're not certified and you're not trained and you don't know what you're doing.
Right. So the fact that they're running the equipment and like you said, it was a way of circumventing certain laws, certain safety measures. Mm-hmm. And I also think it just built the experience hey guys, and I saw the original documentary where these people are in suits, they're on the boat for a little bit, they're doing training. They were all introducing
themselves as mission specialists.
Yes. It seemed like a little bit of a gimmick to me.
A gimmick that also, made it so that if something happened, they wouldn't maybe have the same kind of clapback or blowback that they normally would. And OceanGate also made every mission specialist sign an extensive liability waiver, which mentioned death and serious injury multiple times, even including a statement that Titan was an experimental vessel, not approved or certified by any regulatory body. So on the day that Cyclops 1 was ready to venture out to the Andrea Doria, David Lockridge said they'd already done their research and they knew the shipwreck was very dangerous and falling apart. So he knew they had to keep the sub a good distance away from the wreck. And the plan was all in place when suddenly on the day of, Rush decided he would be the one to take the sub down.
Unfortunately, the CEO decided that he wanted to take it down. I objected because I know sometimes he could do things to please himself. He told me I was staying out. I objected again. I was sort of reined in at the time. Just remember, I'm the CEO. You're just an employee. I eventually persuaded him to let me come in on the dive. So we reduced the paying passengers down to 3. And Stockton said he was taking it down. He had on sonar, clear sonar image, you could see the wreck. And boom, as I said, it's not very deep. Visibility's not excellent, but it was clear enough. Good ambient light that day, and he came straight down, hard on the bottom. No trimming, no ballast, nothing. Smash straight down on the bottom. Visibility went everywhere. You could see a silhouette, and it was the 2 clients that were sitting in the viewing dome right next to the acrylic. And they were like, oh my God, we are right on the wreck. So I said to Stockton, please, all stop telling me what to do. Stockton, all stop. We have to see what's going on here. We have to look at our surroundings, which is standard practice for any competent submersible pilot. And from there, visibility cleared. We could see metal plates, and we could clearly see the starboard side of the bow of the Andrea Doria. We could see all the debris, we could see hawser lines, we could see panels coming off. It was an absolute mess. So I said, Stockton, please, and he just kept arguing with me in the sub. Very unbecoming of a submersible pilot. I was trying to guide him, I'm trying to give the best course of action to get him out of it. No matter what, I'm doing this. So he blew air in the tank, in the ballast tank, came off the bottom, motored full stick ahead, unbeknownst to everybody else, and I don't know why. He decided to turn the submersible 180 degrees at speed, still coming ahead, so he wasn't looking at his surroundings. He could have quite easily went up into the viewing dome, he could have went up into the tower, because it's got a clear acrylic hatch on there, and he basically drove at full speed into the port side of the bow, and we could hear the cracking of the fairing as he got us jammed in underneath. So I'm not going to say how foul my language was, but it wasn't good, and at that point it was unprofessional behaviour of him. He started to panic, and the first thing was, do we have enough life support on board? I was like, Stockton, of course we got enough life support. We need to get out here. When do you think the dive team could come to get us out? Stockton, please, give me the controls. I'm going to get us out of this. We're stuck, we're stuck, we're stuck. Repeatedly, every time I went to take the controller from him, he pushed it further and further behind him, inside the submersible itself. I said, I can be quite vocal sometimes. At that point, it went on and on and on. I'm looking up inside the upper hatch. I could see where there was fishing line draping over the top of the sub, all the metal rebar. There was debris everywhere. He never once got out the seat in the back of the sub to go and look at his surroundings. So I said, let's get a communications check. Let's talk to the top side, let them know what's going on. What if there's no comms? I'm like, give me the controls. Let me talk to them. Let me talk to top side, and I'm going to get us out of this. This went on and on and on for a period of time. And eventually it took one of the paying clients to turn round, and she shouted at Stockton to give me the effing controller. She had tears in her eyes. He reached round behind him. I had my head up inside the tower, so I'm still looking at the wreck, and he clattered it off the right side of my head. The controller landed on the deck plate. One of the buttons came off, the robust PlayStation controller. I picked it up, repaired it, and had us out 10, 15 minutes.
All right, well, let me weigh in first here, because this is a different side of Stockton.
It is the side of Stockton.
I was complimentary of his accolades leading up to this, but this guy sounds like an idiot. Not David. I'm talking about Stockton. He sounds like a child. He sounds like exactly what we were describing earlier, right? This is a guy who wants to be the first. It's me. This is about my ego, my hubris. This is about my credit, right? I want to be responsible for this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Then when it goes wrong, now he's pouting.
Yes.
He's literally pouting in this small tube with 2 paid customers in front of his clients. He's arguing with a guy who clearly knows more than him.
That's what I'm saying, man. David Lockridge has been manning submersibles for 20 years.
Yeah, he knew his shit.
Stockton Rush can fly a plane. He's an engineer, but he does not have the same experience with submersibles that the person he hired for his experience with submersibles has. But he still wants to be this guy. So now you're kicking one paying passenger off so that you can go down. You're taking complete control. What you just heard was a
Thank
story
God
about
David convinced him to let him go.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Imagine.
And what you just heard was a story about a grown man, a Princeton graduate with an engineering degree, throwing what I like to call a baby
tantrum.
bitch boy fit. Yeah.
He's throwing a tantrum.
He pulled them right into the wreck when that was never the plan. He then got the submersible stuck in a very dangerous position where something could fall on it at any time and then you're screwed. Then he refused to let the trained submarine pilot get them to safety because it bruised his ego. And when he was
100%.
finally told by a paying customer to man up, he threw the PlayStation remote at Lockridge, risking it getting broken. It did, and thankfully Lockridge was able to fix it, but that risked them, all 5 of them, never being able to get back to the surface again. And the ego of Stockton Rush is going to be something that many people who knew him and worked with him would often talk about. And like when you said he pouted, yeah, so in the Netflix documentary, they show them coming back up to the surface. He's still pouting.
I'm going to have to watch this. I'm going to wait till after our series is over, though.
Yeah, he's still pouting when they get back up. And when they got the Cyclops 1 to the surface, Lockridge said that Stockton didn't speak to him for the rest of the day. And from then on, the dynamic between them changed. And this is important because now Stockton Rush almost has an idea of like, I don't know if it's because he didn't like that Lockridge challenged him or he didn't like that Lockridge saw him in that like very vulnerable sort of like childish kind of tantrum, but he's on a mission now to kind of phase David Lockridge out. And that's going to be very important.
This is a critical point in the story, because clearly David Lockridge knows what he's talking about. He's someone who could have potentially prevented this tragedy. But he, as you had said earlier in this episode, Stockton surrounded himself with people who were yes men and who wouldn't challenge him.
And if anybody who did,
they got booted out, and it created a culture where everyone's just kind of flippant when things go wrong. And here's a guy who's willing to step up to him, challenge him, and call him out. And as soon as he does, he reminds him that I'm the CEO, you're just an employee. He reminds him of that hierarchy and the position of authority that Stockton's in.
I'm the king.
Yes, and that's not good when you're trying to do something for the first time. You need dissenting opinions. You need a collaborative effort. You need people to challenge you so that you get it right. And Stockton wasn't willing to do that. But you're right. This is right here a recipe for disaster. And when we think about where we're going with this story, this is the type of shit that could have prevented it. So break time. We'll be right back.
Summer is the season of doing. Whether it's home projects, self-care, or just soaking up the sunshine, we all want to make the most of these longer days. And I don't know about you, but the last thing that I want to do when it's gorgeous outside is spend more time in the kitchen or wandering the grocery store aisles, and that is where HelloFresh comes in. HelloFresh is the #1 meal kit voted by USA Today readers, and for good reason. They deliver fresh seasonal ingredients and chef-curated recipes right to your door, making it easier to cook delicious meals without the stress or prep. And if you're really short on time, HelloFresh has new ready-made meals. They're a game changer. We're talking real, flavorful dishes like Southwest chicken bowls, truffle Alfredo cavatappi, or Indian-inspired chicken with turmeric rice. And these are going to be ready in just 3 minutes. It's like fast food if that food was fresh, balanced, and didn't make you feel like you needed a nap afterwards. They've got 60 recipes to choose from each week, plus over 100 market items, so you can stock up on snacks, sides, and breakfast options too. And I honestly think that the HelloFresh market doesn't get enough credit. It doesn't get talked about enough. I'm a big snacker, so I prefer the HelloFresh market. They have like amazing charcuterie boards and snack options and like appetizers and breakfast options, perfect for entertaining for the summer. So we love HelloFresh. I've been cooking with HelloFresh since 2020. I remember it saved me during the pandemic when grocery stores were absolutely just picked clean. Derek is going to tell you how you can check HelloFresh out for yourself right now.
Yeah, I love HelloFresh. Love the fact that it comes with a photo of the finished product so you can see what you're going for. I like to put it up on the stove. Me and the girls cook it together. It's kind of like a little family bonding also while eating some delicious food. So make your summer enjoyable and delicious by signing up for HelloFresh at HelloFresh.com/CrimeWeekly10FM and get 10 free meals with a free item for life. That's HelloFresh.com/CrimeWeekly10FM for 10 free meals and a free item in every box. One more time, that's HelloFresh.com/CrimeWeekly10FM. That's one per box with an active subscription. Free meals are applied as a discount on the first box. New subscribers only, and it varies by plan. So if that looks like a good deal to you, go check them out at HelloFresh.com/CrimeWeekly10FM.
So plans to build the new submersible, Cyclops 2, aka Titan, went full speed ahead, with Stockton Rush telling the media that Titan would be one of the safest forms of transportation in the world, and by the time they were done testing it, the sub would be pretty much invulnerable. Now, OceanGate did conduct pressure testing at the University of Washington's Applied Physics Lab. They conducted this testing on a 1/3 scale model of Titan, and there was some concerning outcomes.
The first test of a scale model of Cyclops' new filament-wound carbon fiber hull, designed and manufactured by Spencer Composites in collaboration with OceanGate and APLUW.
We're testing a 1/3 scale model of the pressure vessel that will be used on Cyclops 2. Initially, when we launched the Cyclops program, we planned to have Cyclops 2 go to 3,000 meters, and we found through our engineering that in fact we can achieve at least 4,000 meters and maybe more. Cyclops 3 has been planned to be 6,000.
The pressure at 6,000 meters, about 8,762 pounds per square inch. By comparison, Navy submarines commonly operate at depths of 180 to 250 meters.
The pressure vessel consists of 3 parts, a cylinder and 2 hemispheres. One of the unique elements of this test will be the hemispheres. So the hemispheres are also carbon fiber, which has never been done at this size or to this depth.
The goal of this test, pressure of 6,000 pounds per square inch. The pressure is raised gradually. At the 71-minute mark, the pressure increased to 4,000 pounds per square inch. At 72 minutes, the pressure was turned up to 5,000 psi. But 3 minutes later, at a pressure of 4,285 psi, representing a depth of about 3,000 meters, the test was aborted by apparent water intrusion into one of the carbon fiber domes.
Yeah, she's open.
That is the most risky part of the test and the most difficult to analyze. Since it's never been done, there's no test data on how carbon fiber in a hemisphere will respond to the pressures.
So yeah, during these testings, you heard what was like cracking sounds, almost snapping sounds. That's the carbon fiber snapping, basically.
Cracking, flexing.
Yeah, which is not what you want, right?
Not what you want to hear, especially if you're inside the thing.
Yes. So throughout 2015 and 2016, OceanGate, in collaboration with the University of Washington's Applied Physics Lab, conducted 4 tests on this 1/3 scale model of Titan. In December of 2015, the model failed at 2,943 meters. In February of 2016, it failed at 4,121 meters. The following month, it failed again, this time at 2,753 meters. And then in July of 2016, it failed at 4,465 meters. So basically, the Titan would be built to have a cylindrical hull, like a tube, and at each end there would be 2 domes that capped the vessel. Now, the original plan had been to use carbon fiber for the cylindrical hull as well as the domes, but due to the test failures, OceanGate switched to titanium domes. However, they made the decision to use grade 3 titanium instead of grade 5 titanium. The most common grades used in engineering are 1 through 5, with grade 5 being 90% titanium, extremely high strength with excellent corrosion resistance. Grade 5 titanium is often used for things like jet engines and deep sea submersible components because it withstands high stress, high pressure environments. Grade 3 is obviously a lower strength than grade 5, with half the ultimate tensile strength, and is not typically used for high pressure structural components. It's also, surprise, price, cheaper and easier to manufacture.
Well, there you go. There's your reason why. Because everything you just said here, other than the price, why would you choose 3 over 5?
You wouldn't, other than the price.
Other than the price. So nobody can say in hindsight, well, we went with 3 because the properties of 3 were better in certain areas. No, 5 is better across the board. There's no reason you would use it other than cost efficiency. That's it. You are cutting costs. Simple.
And OceanGate did start with grade 5 titanium, but then substituted grade 3 in later builds, which would have dramatically reduced the strength of the titanium to carbon fiber joints, which was already the most vulnerable points of the vessel. So in an April 2016 newsletter, OceanGate announced that since the testing of the scale model had been concluded, their engineering team was moving forward with construction of a full-size pressure hull capable of reaching depths of 4,000 meters or 13,000 feet, which is just about where the Titanic sits, okay? But
there needed to be a lot more testing.
There's literally no wiggle room here.
Yeah. No, there needed to be a lot more testing. For me, just going back over some of the numbers that you were relaying, and I know they switched over to a titanium end cap there, but you have 4,000 meters, 2,900 meters, 2,700 meters. To me, that screams inconsistency.
It does.
It's unpredictable. Yes. And I will say I'm not an expert by any means in carbon fiber, but like I was saying earlier, I use it a lot in my 3D prints. And carbon fiber is not all created equal. And I would even say that the same manufacturer producing that carbon fiber, depending on how it's woven together, depending on how it's created, there could be variance in that carbon fiber weave that makes it less strong than the version before it and after it. So that human element that goes into it, there may be factors that even though it's on the surface, on the label, the exact same carbon fiber, there is a variance there. And with something like this, where these centimeters can be the difference in life or death, you can't have that. So just from a layman's perspective, the inconsistencies and the unpredictability of the carbon fiber itself would be a reason not to use it. The titanium 5 seems like a great alternative. It's also it's a little heavier, but
they just used it for the cylindrical caps, not
but
the
they
hull,
could have used it for everything. Maybe
they could have, yeah.
It would have been a lot more expensive. But my point being, there's a lot more predictability with the titanium 5. It's been used in other applications that are similar to other submarines. The only problem being to make that Cyclops. This would be Cyclops 2 or 3.
This would be Cyclops 2, which would become the Titan, yes.
So Cyclops 2, the only difference being is that it would have been a lot more expensive to produce it. But they could have done testing with an entire titanium tube under that pressurized setting, and I would believe that the amount of pressure would have been able to handle PSI would have been a lot higher.
And it's interesting that you say that because they did say that during the trials. They were like, hey, whoever you have winding your carbon fiber for your model should be the same person you have winding your carbon fiber for the full-sized hull. They need to be the same people using the same materials from the same manufacturer.
Process.
That's how a testing, procedure would be done. Because otherwise, like you said, there's risk of maybe this guy winds the carbon fiber different than this guy. Exactly.
But also what you said at the end there before I just went on that whole tangent, even if everything's perfect, even if it's exactly what it should be, same person, all that good stuff, right? The maximum was 4,000 meters or 13,000 feet, which is right at the distance of Titanic. When you're doing anything like this, you don't want your maximum to be right where you're trying to go. You want your maximum to be, in this case, 2,000 or 3,000 meters more than where you're trying to go to. Like you said, there's no margin for error there. They have this maximum amount of pressure that can be applied or distance to 4,000 meters, and they're going to push it to the absolute limit. That's what the best. When you've had variances in the
when you've
testing,
had it fail far before that
correct.
In other testing. Yeah,
that's a problem.
That's important. And what you're talking about is it's called a target testing margin, basically, target safety margin. So in March of 2017, OceanGate actually announced that they would be bringing paying passengers to the wreckage of the Titanic, and the price to ride would be $105,129, which would be the inflation-adjusted cost of a first-class ticket on the maiden voyage of Titanic. So right there, it feels like you're trying to curse people. But while it's true...
But they're selling a story.
Yeah, they're selling an experience, yeah.
These people had an obsession with the Titanic. And you see the documentaries, they wanted to go to the Titanic. It wasn't necessarily they wanted to be in a submersible. They wanted to visit the Titanic.
Yes, exactly. The paying passengers,
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, they wanted to go to the Titanic.
And now, while it is true that the scale model of Titan did not fail until over 4,000 meters in some tests, and the Titanic is technically only 3,800 meters under the Atlantic, it was obviously still a bit premature to be announcing that this submersible, which wasn't even built yet, would be ready to take actual people to such depths. The test done at the University of Washington showed the scale model imploded at about 6,500 psi, which was close to the water pressure at 3,800 meters, the depth of the Titanic, but thousands of meters short of OceanGate's target safety margin, right? Because the target safety margin is going to be significantly
probably
more.
8,000 psi, 9,000
Just to
psi.
be safe, yeah.
You want to have some margin there where you're like, hey guys, don't worry. We could go another 2,000 meters and still be fine. You don't want to be you don't want to be living on the edge. That's not where you want to be.
In fact, Cyclops 2, aka Titan, the prototypes never survived the targeted safety margin pressure in testing, and the company never tested the titanium components of the final submersible. OceanGate instead made the decision to thicken the hull from 4.5 inches to 5 inches, which is going to turn out to be too thick for portable ultrasonic testing equipment to detect minuscule flaws or weak points in the final product. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, because we have to hear about Tony Neeson's testimony. Tony Neeson was hired by OceanGate to be their director of engineering in March of 2016. And he said he was originally asked to finish the Titan, which was then still known as the Cyclops 2, and he was under the impression that this would take about a year. And during his testimony in front of the U.S. Coast Guard, Neeson was clearly emotional and stressed.
I know up to June of 2019, and there's some things that I saw in this presentation that are disturbing. I didn't think I'd need a break, but I wasn't kidding when I said I might need one later on. There's some things that bother me professionally and personally. So I apologize for some of my pauses. So I was pitched by OceanGate that the Cyclops 2 craft was nearly complete in the sense that all the items were in place. They just needed somebody to take it over the finish line. And they wanted somebody with an extensive marine background. I didn't talk about that in my calls. Taught sailing and yachting. I have a Coast Guard master's license, 50 ton. In their mind's eye, I was going to put together the parts and then just start executing it. And so my apologies, that's my watch telling me I have an abnormally high heart rate. I was originally asked to just finish this. It was going to be a year, and that's it. I wasn't asked to design a sub.
Poor guy's about to have a heart attack up there.
He's super stressed.
Excuse me, Mike. That's just telling me I'm at a normally high
He's like, don't
heart
worry
rate
about
right
that.
now.
It's just...
I'm about to pass out.
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
So Tony Neeson, he said when he was hired, he had no idea they planned on going to the Titanic, but he felt he was a good fit for OceanGate because he had broad experience complying with regulatory requirements, and he thought outside the box, right? But by the second week, he started questioning, like, what am I even doing here? Because he felt like he could never catch up. He said by the time he started at OceanGate, a lot of Titan was complete. Dave Dyer at APL, which is the University of Washington Applied Physics Lab, had done a mechanical systems drawing. UW engineer Peter Brodsky had already done the control system on Cyclops 1. Everything external to the hull, mechanical and electrical from Cyclops 1 had already been done by APL. Brian Spencer of Spencer Composites had the hull figured out, and a design analysis report claimed Titan would go well beyond what the target depth was. Neeson said they were supposed to get the same parts from Cyclops 1, put them on Cyclops 2, test it and certify it, and then be done. But it ended up not being so cut and dry. Neeson claimed that Cyclops 1 had power for the thrusters internally, which with a big battery under the floor, but they couldn't do that with Cyclops 2, aka Titan. Additionally, OceanGate had been promised thrusters from Interspace, which they had used on Cyclops 1, only to eventually be told that they would not be provided with the same thrusters from Cyclops 1, making everything that Peter Brodsky had done at the Applied Physics Lab irrelevant. So when the team at the APL began to move with OceanGate from Cyclops 1 to Titan, Stockton Rush began butting heads with Peter Brodsky.
Pete wasn't okay with using glass spheres on the outside and decided to remove himself from the project for that reason. And respectfully, Stockton didn't make a big issue of it to Pete at all, but he was mattered and all get out for sure. He was not happy about that because we were losing Pete.
And so the University of Washington Applied Physics Lab said that utilizing glass spheres in the atmosphere on the outside, so not in the pressure hull, was a no starter for them.
For Pete Brodsky, for sure. And you wouldn't put glass spheres in the inside. Well, I guess you could. It'd be overkill. But for the outside, no. And even oil filling them, Pete was not. He was not okay with it, and so personally, he didn't want to be part of it.
And that was the point at which OceanGate ceased the engineering
with Pete.
With Pete.
Yep.
Man, red flag after red flag. Not good. You got multiple people telling you're going to crash. This is going to crash and burn. And Stockton saying, nope, full steam ahead.
So at this point, OceanGate broke from APL, and then Tony Neeson hired in-house engineers. And Neeson testified that Stockton Rush was not the best at accepting constructive criticism or releasing control, so Neeson did the best he could with both hands tied behind his back most times.
And as the director of engineering, did you make all engineering decisions?
No.
Did you make any engineering decisions?
Yes.
And who would make the majority of the engineering decisions?
It was Stockton. If I could control it, or if I did control it, it was a significant problem or a significant issue, which maybe we'll talk about. That's how 18 strain gauges got on the hull. I wasn't going to settle for anything else. So an engineering decision like that, I made it. And Stockton and I argued about it a lot. Well, let's say the technical decisions for the case itself, the carbon fiber structure. As Brian Spencer, I could raise the alarms all I want, but it's Brian Spencer, and I look at Stockton, and he'd say, this is what we got. This is what we're going with. To the extent that I wasn't comfortable really with the fact that we weren't going to have witness panels. I couldn't understand that about Brian. Like, how would you build this without a witness panel? That's so basic. Seems so basic. But I couldn't stop that. To get the witness panels, the manual was already done, and Stockton wanted to go with that. So this is just a couple of examples of how I could influence it, and some things that, if it mattered enough, then I'd fight for it. And if it didn't matter enough, I'd find a way I can mitigate it.
And was that Mr. Rush's management technique just to you, or was that employed throughout others that you witnessed at OceanGate?
Yeah, Stockton, I'm struggling to find the professional words to be able to put it. I'm an old Navy diver, right? There's a bunch of words I could use, but Stockton would fight for what he wanted. And what he wanted, even if it changed from day to day, right? Like he would fight for what he wanted, and he wouldn't give an inch much at all. So the fights that I had with Stockton, most of it behind closed doors, because as the director of engineering, let's keep continuity in the crew. And they can't really know that the two people on top are in solid disagreement. Most people would just eventually back down from Stockton. Like it was almost death by 1,000 cuts in most of the things. I hope that answers that question. I don't know a really good professional way to organize that in my brain right now.
Yeah, that's what we've been saying all episode, right? Like Stockton had it in his mind how things were going to go. He tried to surround himself with people that would eventually concede to what he wanted. And he had these people on board because he needed them, he wanted them, but he was only hiring them to affirm what he wanted.
Yeah, and I feel like almost for looks, right? Like, oh, I have this expert here and I have this expert here, but if you're not listening to them, it doesn't matter who you surround yourself with. He
was looking for their endorsements, and when they didn't give them just easily, and he would push back and say, well, you know what, if you're not with me, you're against me, you got to go. And he was open to hearing other opinions, but in reality, he wasn't receptive to them to the point where he would make changes. It was more like, I understand what you're saying. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Now we're going to do exactly what I've already planned on doing.
Exactly.
So that's not the way you operate.
And you heard Tony Neeson talk about something called witness panels and the carbon fiber hull of the Titan being designed without them. And I was like, what the hell are witness panels? I had no idea. So I looked it up, and this is what I'm talking about, like really liking doing these cases because I learned things. But he would eventually explain, and then I did some more research. Witness panels are small sample pieces of the exact same materials used to build the submersible's pressure hulls. So they're going to be manufactured at the same time, using the same process and the same, basically, material. And they're going to do this for monitoring and testing purposes. Having witness panels would allow engineers to regularly inspect how the material was aging without having to cut into the actual hull. They could also detect early signs of fatigue, delamination, cracking, or water damage in the material and run lab tests on the panels after a certain number of dives or years to see if the carbon fiber was weakening. Witness panels are like check engine lights, only more precise and science-based. So if a witness panel starts to show signs of degradation, then obviously it can be a warning sign that the actual hull might be experiencing that same degradation. Peter Brodsky, former OceanGate consultant from the University of Washington APL, he criticized the decision to exclude witness panels from Titan's carbon fiber hull. And obviously, this probably had something to do with why Peter Brodsky and Stockton Rush started butting heads, and Peter Brodsky eventually decided to not work on the project anymore. Without witness panels, there was no non-destructive way to monitor the long-term health of the material. And this is especially dangerous because carbon fiber can look fine on the outside, even when it's deteriorating internally, and stress from each dive can build up invisibly. No witness panels means there was really no early warning system. Now, Tony Neeson did say that he and Rush were concerned about the possibility of voids, which they had seen in the carbon fiber during the 1/3 scale testing. Voids are tiny pockets of air, gas, or empty space that get trapped inside carbon fiber composites during the manufacturing process. Like we talked about, carbon fiber is made by layering sheets of fiber and bonding them with resin. So if that process is not done perfectly, if there's too little resin, if air gets trapped inside, or if the layers aren't properly pressed together, you can end up with voids. Carbon fiber is only strong when it's dense, solid, and uniformly bonded, and voids obviously weaken that structure. They create points of stress concentration where pressure can focus and begin to cause cracks. They can also grow over time under repeated stress, like, multiple deep sea dives, eventually leading to something called delamination, where layers of carbon fiber peel apart. Under extreme pressure, like at Titanic depths, those tiny imperfections can become catastrophic failure points. Even a void the size of a grain of sand can become a huge problem under 6,000 psi of ocean pressure. So not only did OceanGate not use witness panels or conduct thorough post-dive inspections to look for internal damage, not only did they not do any third-party inspections or bring in classing agencies to rigorously check for voids or other imperfections, but there's also been reports from whistleblowers and former employees that the carbon fiber used for Titan was way past its shelf life and may have had quality control issues. And we'll be talking more about that later.
I just want to say, just to me, it just seems like carbon fiber wasn't the right material for this choice. Even if there was just too many variables in it.
Way too much unknown.
And we know that it's used in airplanes and all that stuff, and it has a lot of applications that it's incredible at. Carbon fibers are a great material for a lot of different things. It just here, there's the unpredictability of it. When you talk about a void the size of a grain of sand being a stress point that could result in death, if the material affords for anything like that, it's probably not the right material. There were better substances out there that they could have used, like a titanium, that would have removed these variables, these variances that could have led to catastrophic failure. And again, I think it was based on cost effectiveness.
It was cost and also the lightness, like how fast could it get to depth? How much time would they have at the ocean floor because you got to depth quicker? The vessel that can assist in the submersible doesn't have to be as high.
Yeah, it'd be easier to move because it's lighter, but the trade-off is it's weaker. And that's a trade-off you can't make. Like if it's an extra half hour to get to depth, but I'm gonna guarantee you get there, I think that's a trade-off most people would make. So yeah, it's a problem. I think what it really came down to is cost.
Well, basically, because there was no witness panels and because OceanGate had not conducted any third-party testing or certification of Titan's hull, the company implemented something they called the real-time monitoring system. And this was an acoustic system that Stockton Rush had invented and then got a patent on. So the RTM, the real-time monitoring, it included acoustic emission sensors, which are basically underwater microphones that would be mounted on the inside of the submersible and then on the surface of the carbon fiber hull. And they would listen for high frequency signals that would suggest the carbon fiber was cracking or stressed. And you can see these microphones working in the Netflix documentary because you can see them doing the test on the 1/3 scale hull. And you can see on a screen, every time there's a spike, that means that there's a sound the microphones are detecting. And the sound would be, once again, that carbon fiber snapping, cracking.
Yeah.
It sounds like a rubber band, like, pew, and you could see how much it was doing that. So Stockton's like, oh yeah, don't worry. We have these microphones that's going to detect if, the carbon fiber is having issues or is stressed. So in interviews and in a patent filing, Rush explained that the idea was to detect the smallest sound of structural failure, something like a snap of fiber under stress, before it turned catastrophic. And there's a lot of obvious problems with this system because it would only detect a problem as it was happening, and under crushing pressure, a structural failure in carbon fiber can go from first crack to full implosion in microseconds. We talked earlier about how the decision to make the carbon fiber hull 5 inches, remember, they were doing the test with the 1/3 scale model and it kept failing. So they were like, oh, we'll just make
it thicker.
We'll make it thicker. Right? And that made it impossible to test for flaws with portable ultrasonic equipment. So
it couldn't penetrate deep enough.
You could do testing with a stationary ultrasonic rig, but Stockton Rush decided that transporting and testing the Titan to one of these stationary rigs would be too expensive. So ultrasonic equipment was never used to test the submersible. They have portable ones you can bring with you on the ship that the Titan would be pulled out to sea with. And then you could test after the dives, before the dives, to see if there's issues with this ultrasonic, it's basically looking inside of it. But because the hull was too thick, they couldn't use that. And he just decided against using an actual stationary ultrasonic rig. He said, no, we don't need to do that. It's too expensive. It doesn't matter. While you're using carbon fiber and you're just depending on these little microphones to be the thing that tells you that there's an issue, which is crazy to me. So Tony Neeson and Stockton Rush would talk about classing Titan, but ultimately that never happened because carbon fiber was not an approved material to be used at the depths that they wanted the Titan to go to.
Stockton's first issue was time and cost, to go through their plan. And I think he really wanted them to be part of it. But I think the plan that they came up with, if I remember right, one of the days he was crying on my shoulder, it's going to take too long and way too expensive. It's ridiculous. And in his words, it stifles innovation. I said, well, you could still be innovative. Might take a little bit longer, but there was a divorcing, so to speak, over the idea when he couldn't get traction on what he wanted.
And it was in 2017 when OceanGate was promising the trip of a lifetime to the bottom of the sea to view the holy grail of shipwrecks that tension started to really build within the company's ranks. And when those outside and inside the company began expressing their concern about the construction of Titan and how safe it would be during dives to extreme depths. And this is when reportedly Stockton Rush went full steam ahead, ignoring the red flags and scoffing at the warnings. He just pretty much was like, and this wasn't just people in the company, this was experts. I think even James Cameron was like, this is weird. People were coming out and because OceanGate was getting a lot of traction in the media, and people were coming out, his peers, his colleagues, people who worked for him, people who had worked with him in the past, just people in the submersible industry who knew better. And they were like, hey, we suggest you don't do this. And he's like,
it's a problem.
Yeah, he's like, no, how do you blaze a trail if you're not willing to set stuff on fire? He didn't say that, but it sounds like something he would say. And that's pretty much when he was like, I'm doing this. I've put a lot of time and effort into this. I feel that this is very safe. I feel that it cannot fail. And so we're doing this.
Yeah, no, I started off the episode giving Stockton a compliment. I probably won't have many for the remainder of this series. Listen, you could be talented, and you hit the nail right on the head. Talent, but with hubris, could be a dangerous combination. And you have what it appears to be a situation here where Stockton felt that he was the smartest guy in the room. Couple that with trying to expedite this process to start turning a profit. He was blinded by his own ambitions and his own greed. At least it's what it sounds like so far. And anytime he was given an opportunity to make a course correction by someone who was smarter or at least more knowledgeable in a specific area than him, he would disguise his rationale behind the need for exploration, right? And knowing that there were going to be risks that needed to be taken in order to do new things. But in reality, I think at the core, a lot of his decision-making process was based on the bottom line as far as money. So that's an issue.
I also think not even just future money, but he had put so much of his own money
he was probably
and
draining the well.
investors' money and stuff into this, and they'd gotten so far. And before this thing's even built, he's going on TV shows, talking to the media, like, oh yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. So he had basically gone out to the world and said, this is happening. And so how now could he turn back?
Promised them he would do it under this price point. Yeah.
Dude, he'd even taken money from people who were booking passage on this Titan submersible to the Titanic far before it was even ready. So he'd taken hundreds of thousands of dollars from paying passengers that he probably spent, okay, and then couldn't reimburse them. He's taking all this money from investors and he's using his own money and he cannot reimburse this money. So it's like, what choice do I have? I have to go full speed ahead at this point.
No, it's terrible. We're gonna have to wait to watch this. I'm gonna have to wait to watch this documentary until we're done with the series. But maybe we'll do like a Crime Weekly watch party or something. That'd be kind of cool because I'd like to watch the documentary, but I want to wait until after we complete the series because wouldn't make a lot of sense to do it now when you've watched it and you're telling everyone the story, including me. So, yeah, looking forward to part 2. Any final words from you before we wrap this one up?
No, I'm excited to get to next week and start telling more of the story and getting into really, some really shocking stuff. Honestly, I think,
I've already heard a few shocking things.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to have much nice to say about Stockton going forward.
I'm done with it. Listen, 2 things can be true. You can be a smart guy. You can have talent, but again, promise versus actual execution is 2 different things. And at this point, the takeaway from episode number 1 is it was preventable.
100%.
It was preventable. So that's a problem because people's lives were lost, not just Stockton's. And that's a big issue because they were not aware of these things.
Yeah, and playing with your own life is one thing. If you want to be the only guy down
100%.
there testing these things out, then it still sucks.
A great
and it'd still be like, hey.
We talked about Amelia Earhart.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, she knew the risks, right? She knew there was going to be some issues, but she risked her own life, not the lives of others. So
she did have a co-pilot, but.
Did she?
Yeah.
Did not know that. Well, the co-pilot risked their life as well. They knew what they were getting their hands into, right?
We don't know
where he's at either. Yeah,
we don't know where he's at either.
Did not know that.
They think there was something going on.
Maybe we got to do that series at some point. Have you ever covered that on your channel?
No, I mean.
That'd be a cool one to cover.
Yeah, let us know if you want us to do that.
Yeah.
I love history, so I'm always down.
Okay, cool. Guys, we appreciate you being here. Everyone, CrimeCon again. If you want, go over, check it out, leave a comment and a review. You get to subscribe, turn your notifications on. There's already a bunch of you already. Leave a review. You can rate CrimeCon. You can rate everyone's writing nice words underneath it. That may sway the decision as we're scrolling through. You never know. So leave a comment, leave a review. We'll pick someone next week. If you want to go get your CrimeCon tickets, you don't want to wait and go over to CrimeCon and just use our code CrimeWeekly. We appreciate you being here. Everyone stay safe out there. We'll see you next week.
Bye.